Hello and welcome to our podcast with me, Mark, and my associate, Steve. As you know by now, Steve has some things he wishes to get off his chest or put out for discussion. I do not know what he's going to bring up. If I know about it, we may have a discussion. If not, I'll question him about the subject. So here we go, over to Steve. See what he's got for us this week.
Okay, hi people. So here we go. It's going to be a little bit nerdy today, so put your nerd hat on.
All right.
And, let's go down. This I thought was interesting on several levels. In Siberia. 40 meters underground was found a microscopic life form, a roundworm, and it had been frozen for over 46,000 years. And it was dormant. And when they took it to the laboratories, it came back to life. And apparently the scientists there, they looked at it under the microscope, and they've got over 100 generations of this roundworm. It's from the nematode family.
Okay.
So I told you I'd get nerdy.
Yeah.
But the thing that struck me was partway down this article, which it said that scientists had revived viruses after 48,000 years, also from Russia. And that concerned me a little bit because we don't know why life forms were killed all that long time ago. We don't know if they died because of the viruses. We don't know if they died because of the climate.
Yeah.
And these scientists are bringing these viruses back to life without really knowing how dangerous these viruses are. I know they're going to be in laboratories, but then so was COVID.
Well,
so was COVID. So they're on they're touching on the realms of well, we don't know. It could be a great disaster. It could be that they're going to find something interesting out. They might find the elixir of life if they keep on,
Well,
and they could find out that they've got the formula of death if they keep on going after these viruses. The roundworm I'm not too bothered about,
Yeah.
because there's medicine for them, but the viruses that sort of worried me.
Well, I mean, it is. I mean, I've known about the plague virus, the bubonic plague, which was quite popular in England in 1665.
It was quite fashionable, wasn't it?
Yeah, 1665, 1666. It got killed off by the fire of London. In London, that was. Yeah, I mean, I believe that the plague virus can live for 1,000 years. Okay, it's not long scale under normal circumstances. So when I used to work in London. We used to have to do some digging, excavation work or things around London, and they found something that looked like a plague pit. There was a little bit of a worry. I was involved in one project. It wasn't a plague pit. It was actually in Stratford, where a proper Christian burials from an abbey which used to be there, which is now got the Stratford Underground Depot on top of it, which they say is good preservation. Had to move, I believe, this depot while they're putting it to preserve it, but it's still under there. Obviously, it's a burial site. Yeah, I mean, they find these these things, obviously, yeah, they take precautions. I can't see a Jurassic Park scenario where somebody thinks, "Oh, I know it's a good idea. We'll make some dinosaurs." The technology is there. I mean, it's the same thing. Yeah,
They do have some scientists
yeah,
have worked out the DNA
yeah,
of some. I think of the woolly mammoth. I think it was.
yeah, yeah. I remember that.
They found the DNA and they can recreate. Now, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I was on about they're making cells
Yeah,
just out of the. They didn't need to fertilize the cell
yeah,
to make the animal,
yeah,
and they were on about making a woolly mammoth. You know, which
yeah. Two questions: to what
as
end?
long as you only make one, you know.
Yeah, to what end? Yeah, I mean, I heard that. Yeah, they're going to use, well, I say use elephant DNA to see what they could do, but it's a it. I mean, yeah, to say this now, you obviously your concerns are, well, yeah, I mean, COVID it's getting more and more obvious. So that was a man-made entity, which I do not believe the Chinese deliberately released it on their population, if not the world.
Accidents happen, you
Yeah,
know. I mean,
yeah.
we've
I
had
mean, and
most disasters are formed
yeah,
when it's an accident.
yeah, what are we playing with? What are they playing with? Yeah, I mean, something that's going to survive for that amount of time, logically, to my untrained medical chemical mind. Hey, hey, happy days, let's go party if you bring them out today, to put it flippantly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is known, and it depends where. I mean, and we know about it. Yes, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that things can survive that long. There's a lot we don't understand about our own world, as we said a couple of weeks or last week, I think, without thinking about other things, going to space and things. Certainly interesting. Um,
These round ones apparently they go into a dormant state.
yeah,
They don't die; they just go into a dormant state.
well, it's the whole process. It's the whole thing of, when you, if you have anyone science fiction fans who watched Alien, where they have the long trip where they go into stasis. Yeah, it's exactly the same process, I believe. Yeah, maybe
But look,
somebody.
moving on, because you gave an excellent segue there
Yeah,
about space.
yeah,
You know, because on the 11th of August,
mm,
Luna 25
mm,
is a rocket and it's going to go
yeah,
to the moon.
yeah,
Now, up until 2 days ago,
mm,
I didn't even know what happened to the Lunas 1 to 24.
mm.
You any idea who it is? Lunas? The Lunas?
I'm afraid I don't. No, can't.
Right. So here we go.
Yeah,
I'm not going to dwell on this
yeah,
because apparently there is so much information out there
mm,
that, you know, if you did a quick check, you'd find out all
yeah,
about it. But the Luna project
mm,
was the Russian version of the Apollo project.
yes,
And when everybody was on about the great space race,
mm,
apparently it was Luna
mm,
against Apollo. The
yeah,
Russians didn't release information
mm,
about Luna
yeah,
uh, until 1990, when the USSR
yeah,
decided it'd break itself up and
yeah,
be smaller countries, is when Russia started to open up.
mm,
And apparently, the lunar program initially was between 1959 and 1976,
mm,
and then it went dormant
yeah,
until this next August, the 11th, which in a couple of days' time, in a few days' time.
yeah,
They had 15 successful missions. The
mm,
Russians, they tend to uh, that were designated lunar.
mm,
They had a lunar number.
yeah,
Um, and those that weren't successful, they just discarded them and didn't call them
Mm.
anything. You know, they weren't given a number. But what was interesting is that the first contact with the moon,
Mm.
uh, albeit indirectly with the use of a rocket,
Yeah.
it was the Russians that did that in 1959 with Luna 2.
Right. I mean,
Uh,
yeah.
they sent a rocket and
Yeah.
they had a it landed on the moon,
Yeah.
right? Well, part of the rocket landed on the moon,
Yeah.
and it's what's called at that time it was what was called the hard landing. So it's
Yeah.
like if you throw a stone
Yeah.
and it just lands on the
That's
ground,
a
right?
pot shot. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it didn't manage to send back a photograph,
Mm.
albeit very, very grainy.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Um, and on they had the first soft landing on the moon.
Mm.
The Russians did the first soft landing on the moon in 1966, which was like a little bit like what we'd recognize as a lunar module.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, a controlled one with
Mm.
rockets that settled it on the moon, and the machine
Mm.
on this lunar module, if you like,
Mm.
I'll call it a lunar module. It was able to do simple tasks
Mm.
on the moon. Even the Russians, they sent a rover to the moon, like a little car, albeit all remote controlled.
Yeah. I I heard a documentary. I think it might have been BBC years ago.
Mm.
That was talking about the space race, and I mean, yes, it was a prestige thing. Um, yes, and what happened, like you said, in the 90s when all the data got released, it shocked American scientists how close the Russians were. I mean, they
Yes,
put man in space first. Um,
yes, they did.
and don't know
Regarding
how, we still don't know how many they might put up there before the successful one. Like you say, they were very in bad
in
news.
in
Yeah,
'69,
yeah,
just in '69, apparently 1969,
yeah.
a cosmonaut he he went up into space and he came
Yeah.
back, and the parachutes failed on
Mm.
his little capsule that they come
Mm.
back in, and they
Yeah.
land in the desert,
Yeah.
and he got burnt to a crisp. And
Well,
apparently, in my search for this,
yeah.
because when I said Luna 20, when I looked at Luna 25, I said, well, where's Luna 1
Mm.
to 24? So
Yeah.
I went looking for it,
Yeah.
you know. And there's one cosmonaut, and he was burnt to a crisp, but he
Mm.
was buried in an open casket. So you had this crispy cosmonaut
Yeah.
in his coffin being being buried,
Well,
and his casket was open, and you could see him.
mm.
And he said that he wanted to be buried in an open casket because he knew
Yeah.
that there were so many failures
Yeah.
on the mission
Mm.
that he wouldn't come back alive.
Yeah.
And it was a message to show to the government, look what you've done to me,
Yeah. I mean,
which I thought was interesting.
there is a recording floating around the internet of a female cosmonaut supposedly
Mm.
who's meant to be basically re-entering and flying as she's doing it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, some of it's been debunked, some of it's so people it's real. You just don't know. I mean, yeah, the Russians were quite open in the 90s about where they were and everything else. I mean, there was a guy who actually found all the space shuttles, warehouses full of space shuttles. I don't know if you've ever found it. You know, these people go exploring. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
he found something that was unguarded in the middle of a desert somewhere. And yeah, I mean, technologically, the Russians are very, very capable. Always have been. We've always known that. Probably because they do more trial and error than anyone else.
That's right. That's
Yeah,
why I say, those that weren't successful, they didn't put a number on it. They just
yeah,
numbered the successful
um,
missions.
yeah. I mean, it is a. I mean, probably the Chinese are the same for all we know. I know they've got a space program.
I'm going to come on to that.
Yeah. Okay. I wondered. Yeah. I mean, it is a. yeah, I mean the technology involved. I mean it's actually, I believe, Russians who actually were talking about space station and got that going. Really, the Americans bolted onto it.
Right,
There's,
right, right, right.
there's actually protocols of what of how the astronauts are meant to behave, even if the major war breaks out. They've been told not to go killing each other. I think they're meant to isolate each other or something. But
They,
yeah, yeah,
they,
yeah,
with, they were circling the moon and sending
yeah, yeah,
projectiles to the moon
yeah,
at that time.
mm,
And so, is this going to, all those, for me, it threw a light
mm,
on the Apollo
mm,
missions. And
yeah,
did man actually stand on the moon? Did he actually walk on the moon? And all of a sudden, any doubt that I had
yeah,
has been taken away because I think,
yeah,
yes, they did.
yeah. Um,
Because, because there was so much going on
mm,
at that time,
mm,
you know, um, like I said, 59 to send the first projectile that
yeah,
reached the moon,
yeah,
and all between 59 and sort of 70,
yeah,
it was like taking a bus ride. They go orbit the moon and come back.
yeah,
They go to the moon, pick up soil and bring it back.
yeah.
And all of this was going on before I was, sometime before I was even born.
Well, I mean, I've never had any doubt that man walked on the moon. Um, I mean, yeah, people look at the flags like this, who took this picture and everything else. It's all been explained. Man walked on the moon, kick dust, as it were. It would be too big a hoax to cover up anyway. And yeah, these guys were brave. And when you read the testimonies of Neil Armstrong and others, and yeah, they are brave men. I mean, they're military guys. They accepted death was part of the occupation, so whatever. And they came from a time where they could be sent to war or go to space. It didn't really matter to them.
Right.
Honourable people as well, tough guys. Yeah. Um, and let's go behind it as well, both on the American and the Russian side, and to be not to be woke, but to be explanatory. There are a lot of women involved in these programs as well that did all the number crunching.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, just to bring that in. So the research and everything behind. So these guys are the front end, the public sector, or the public view of it. What was going on behind with the number crunching and everything else, and
Yeah, yeah.
on both
Um,
sides was incredible. You do wonder where we would be today if the Russians and the Americans may have. I know it's hypotheticals and history's full of what's ifs.
mm.
What if they had actually worked together? What could have been achieved?
Well,
Um,
they do to a certain extent
yeah,
with
they still
the
do.
with
Yeah,
the with the space station.
yeah. Well, that's it. I mean,
That's a joint venture.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
that's what I mean. That I think the Russians started that. I can't remember the full history, but the Americans, yeah, they did it together. It's quite incredible. Um,
and some of the rockets that the Russians have developed,
yeah.
apparently they are more efficient than the Saturn V, which had 5 rockets at the bottom
Did he not?
of the American Saturn V rocket,
Yeah,
and the Russians
yeah,
supply the states
yeah.
with their
Oh
rockets.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think Elon Musk went there and bought one of the first rockets for his operations there to see.
Right.
Yeah, I mean it is a um I mean, yeah, when the Cold War and we went into Eastern Europe and found the technology, the tracking things and everything else, the ground which is side, yeah, I find a bit more interesting. I should learn the lunar, but yeah, it is a yeah, they realised, yeah, that these guys weren't messing around. They nearly pulled it. They nearly beat the Americans. I mean, that would have been how different things might have
Well,
been.
I really sometimes when
Yeah.
I read something, I feel really, really ignorant
Well,
because we've all heard of the space race,
mm,
but we've only ever heard of the Apollo.
well, there's a winner. That's why.
Well, it's because the information.
Yeah.
Apparently, I mean, I've just discovered this 2 days ago, man.
Mm,
you know, and it's just opened up a whole new world for me.
Yeah. Again, well, I mean, I've watched a lot of
Like,
documentaries. Yeah.
but saying that, so did the roundworm, you know, with the 46,000-year-old roundworm.
Well, how can us mere mortals sit here and not and know all this stuff? And we're not ignorant people. Let's be honest about it. We're probably average people. How, I mean, in what sector, what value of our life, only that we're doing this podcast and find interesting things,
Yeah,
you ever think about the worm? I mean, I did catch something about it the other day because I
yeah,
try and anticipate what you're going to talk about.
yeah,
It again, why would we think about it? We go through the internet, or I used to get a magazine called Focus in the UK, which was a monthly roundup, or week by week or something, roundup of what was happening scientifically. And I still draw from that when I'm doing my lessons and talking to you sometimes. So my information is sometimes 30 or 40 years out of date, or behind. But it's just showing you that they were talking about that then. I mean, the fact that you can freeze carbon bodies like we are is not unknown. I mean, this is it. What they're talking about doing it in the US to
but
preserve
they did
people.
that with Michael Jackson, didn't they?
I don't know. I thought
It
it's
was
an urban
deep
myth.
throating him to come back
Yeah,
when they find out how to bring him back to life.
yeah,
Let's move on because
yeah,
let's
yeah,
go to Africa now.
yeah,
So we're covering the whole world.
yeah.
Julius Malema,
Mm-hmm,
he's a leader of um, the Economic Freedom Fighter Party in
mm-hmm,
South Africa.
yeah,
Bit leftist, he is.
yeah. Okay.
I'm, I'm right down the middle. I'm not left or right.
No, 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 no. I get that.
However, it's just to say, you know, just put everybody
Yeah.
in the picture. And he's called for the white farmers or the Boer,
Mm,
as they're known as, to be killed. And so the black people, they have the farms,
mm,
right? And I questioned this to myself, and I said, well, you know, what's going to happen with the food supply?
mm,
You know, do these people who's going to take over the farm, do they know how to farm? Because there's going to be some interruption
mm.
for sure,
Yeah.
because it's cyclical. If you know, how are they going to be able to, apart from killing the white people, are they going to be willing? Are they going to be able to continue the running of the farm?
Mm,
That was the first thing,
mm,
and you know that would make a food shortage in
yeah.
South Africa. And then I thought of the BRICS. South
Mm,
Africa's the BRICS, and it looks like South Africa is like the weakest link
mm,
in the BRICS group.
yeah.
You know, and will the BRICS group support South Africa if genocide happens in South Africa? You know,
Yeah.
what would happen in that part? But then I also had a, if you want to see the future,
Mm,
sometimes you need to look at the past.
yeah.
And just over 20 years ago,
Mm,
Zimbabwe,
mm,
when their economy started to go to pot
mm,
in 98, 99,
yeah.
sometime like that, uh, they took the land from all the white farmers too.
Mm,
And but in but 20 years later, in 2020, they gave them back
mm,
because they couldn't cope. The main crops was tobacco.
mm,
You know, Zimbabwe was quite a wealthy
yeah.
country
Yeah.
at one point until corruption.
Mm,
Mugabe,
mm,
the Mugabe government, they were all corrupt.
yeah.
And once the economy started to go to rot
Mm,
in 98, 99, they had to have a bogeyman.
yeah.
And so they said, right, let's take all the land from these white people.
Yeah.
It's these people that have created all this problem. When it wasn't, it was Mugabe and his
Yeah.
cronies.
Yeah.
But what they did is that compounded the problem
Mm,
because the people who took the land didn't know how to farm,
mm,
didn't realize. I mean, I've got a small holding. I've got an 8 acre
yeah,
small holding, and to work on the land, it's not easy. It's
no,
very hard.
yeah,
For those that are not used to it, it's
yeah,
very hard,
mm,
very hard. And so I think, and like I said, in 2020 they started getting these lands to come back,
yeah,
and we are where we are today.
mm,
So we just needed to look at what happened with Zimbabwe
mm,
decided to take the land from the whites, of what happened. And I imagine that if South Africa takes the land from the whites, they're going to go through a similar process because
yes,
the South African economy
yeah,
is going to pot,
yeah,
the infrastructure is all crumbling, and the government is a little bit corrupt. And so, you know, taking the land from the whites
mm,
and is gonna compound the problem.
yeah,
And it's only in terms of Zimbabwe, Mugabe, he gave up. He
yeah,
he 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 resigned. He said, "Look,
yeah,
I don't want any more of this." And I suspect that the people who are in charge of South Africa now, if they take the land from the whites, they're going to end up doing the same thing,
yeah.
and then the developers will come in and start taking.
Well, the two things in it: will they actually be able to do it? South African laws are actually quite strong. I've seen,
Killed one the other day. They killed one the other day.
yeah, that will be that's still murder. It's not an official government decree to do it. Yeah, okay. I mean, we have to wait and see what happens. I think that will still be murder. Um, it is worrying now. Okay, is South Africa going to be part of the BRICS? They might have to adhere to
They
some.
are part of the BRICS.
Yeah, our part of the BRICS going to be our
Yeah,
part of the BRICS. Yeah, they're going to have to adhere to probably some strict questions or
yeah.
some rules. Going around killing your own population, I imagine
In
even.
spite, in spite of the fact that this guy
Yeah,
from the economic
yeah,
party,
party.
he's the opposition.
Yeah,
He's not. He's not in power. He's the
well,
opposition. But
I mean, that's it. It's a call to arms in de facto. Um,
yeah,
yeah, he's running an agenda. Um, it would appear, and yeah, talking to the top of my head. I mean, yeah, I mean, I've heard of turmoil there. I hadn't actually heard of this cases, but they are. We know that South African politics has been in turmoil for a long time.
wow.
I mean, Mandela managed to hold it together, sort of. That's one man. Unfortunately, he's been let down by people around him, or was,
That's for sure.
and his legacy has been to a certain extent because he would not have wanted this.
No.
Um, yes, it is a grasp for power. We see it happening in other places in the world with people who have a certain way of thinking. Um, and yeah, you give to people. Yeah, okay. I mean, okay, you can transition across, but that's the point. A proper transition. But okay, the whites probably own the majority of the bigger farms there. I don't know. I mean, yeah, but it's what it is. It's a working system. Maybe work it so that they provide employment for blacks and people like this or other people. I know that,
Or alternatively, the blacks can offer working opportunities for the whites because it's the whites that, that we
have the
know of,
technology. Yeah, have the
that
knowledge.
not only the technology but the know-how,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
it's again
that
that's
are
what I mean.
that are directors of companies that don't really know
Yeah,
how their own business works. They're just
yeah,
there just to manage the people,
yeah,
and they employ people who do know what they're
yeah.
doing.
Well,
You know,
that's it. I mean, but then at that point, it's a state-owned entity or state-owned company that
mm,
employs people. You get allocated. You will be managing this farm because that's who
mm,
you are. That's how communism works. You get allocated your role. If you're a doctor, or if you're a worker, or if you're something else, I mean, it's how an career operates. You're put into something that is your skill, or roughly, and told where to go. You don't get a choice in it, which would seem to be leading into that, from what you're telling me. That's probably part of the long-term plan. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be any planning with any of this. It's, we're going to do this now. Strike for blow for the workers, and then the workers start starving. That's the cycle of it all. That's the cycle of revolution.
You're one for segues.
Yeah.
Today you're the segue man. I'll call you the segue man.
Okay. All right.
Because the next subject I wanted to touch on is about electric cars.
Yeah.
A lot of information out there about electric cars. But let's talk about the economic factor about electric cars and about electricity and about green energy. So the Emden factory in Germany, I believe it's a Volkswagen plant that went all green and started making just electric cars.
Yeah.
It's shutting down for 2 weeks, and then they're going to give collective holidays for the workers, and half of those are going to be let go after the holidays.
Yeah.
Because nobody's taken up buying electric cars. Nobody wants them. There's just no demand. That was after €1 billion of investment by Volkswagen to change that plant to be just for electric, and removing all the parts, all the machinery for components for the internal combustion engine. And this lack of interest in electric cars in Germany is across the board. It's not just Volkswagen. It's just that where I got my information from, it was about the Volkswagen.
Yeah.
And this guy is he has a channel on YouTube called Jeff Buys Cars. It's Jeff Buys Cars.
Okay, yeah.
Check him out. Actually, he's quite a funny guy, And he did a depreciation test.
Yeah.
On 2 similar cars, one a petrol car and the other one an electric car. And what he found out is that after 2 years, the 2 cars, the value of the 2 cars was more or less the same.
Yeah.
Except that the electric car, when it was new, was almost twice the price of the petrol car. Because electric cars are a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
And so the electric car lost almost 50% of its value after 2 years. That's even taking into consideration the running costs and taking into consideration all the petrol that you buy for your petrol car.
Yeah.
He did a discount for the electric car, saying it didn't cost anything. And there's no tax on electric cars.
Yeah.
Road tax, the EPVA here in Brazil, the road tax in the UK, there's no tax.
Yeah.
But even taking all that into consideration, it's still cheaper to have a used petrol car.
Okay.
Which makes all those people that buy an electric car using a bank loan, they're going to be paying the rest of the bank loan for something that they've been paying back more in bank loan than the value. It's a bit like a house that depreciates in value a great deal.
I mean,
and they had all these people in the United States.
Yeah.
Ford, by the way, has lost. I think it's $4 billion. Because nobody's buying the electric cars in the US.
Well, the big problem is forgetting the price of it, getting the things charged. is a problem. There's been a few videos come out this week about the safety, and the past few months in Australia have come from as well, that the issues of safety. And I mean, I used to work with batteries in my past life, and I know the procedures we used to have to go through to maintain the batteries.
That ship in Holland, it's still burning. That the electric car blew up on the ship. It's still burning.
Yeah.
But you're talking about charging the electric cars.
Yeah.
What's aggravating the charging of electric cars, especially the public charging of electric cars, is that in the UK, people are stealing the cable that comes from the machine, you know, that generates the energy up to the plug.
Yeah.
Because the copper content in one of those cables is worth around about 50-60 pounds.
Yeah.
So they go around take off 4 or 5 cables from these machines, and they've got a couple of hundred, 300 pounds.
Yeah. Well,
you know,
it's
to replace them.
Yeah.
Thousands.
Well, there's a lot of issues, and there are people carrying generators, diesel generators, in the back of their in the back of their electric cars to recharge the car if it needs it, in case they get a situation like that. You go into some charging points and they've got a diesel generator sitting there pumping on to supply. There's still a lot of thinking to be done. I'm not saying they're not viable yet, or that they won't be viable.
I think the public charging points are probably going to have to buy your own cable and plug it into the charging point,
or it comes out the car. It comes out the car in like that, and then goes back in. That would be the simpler solution, rather than have people start becoming electricians and then causing sparks and blowing the things up as well, which is another problem. The charging and the overheating. It is I mean, there's been a couple of videos in the past couple of days about it. Okay, there's been a couple of people who are anti-electric cars. I'm neither for or against them, because I think the technology is brilliant. I think it does need a bit more thought implementation. It gives the people a choice. If they want an electric car, let them have one. If they've got these facilities to do it, fair enough. We're not quite ready to phase out cars yet. I mean, I don't own a car in Brazil because it's expensive enough before I even start thinking about anything else to own a car, and I wouldn't use it. It would be sitting down in my parking space, which I rent out to someone else, so I make money on my parking space here. Shouldn't admit that, should I? But yeah. But it's a personal choice not to have a car. Well, it's a financial one as well. I wouldn't get the use from it. It's not worth it. It's not I've got any objection. Well, no, when you're driving around town, you can't drive anywhere quickly, electric car or conventional car, because you're in a traffic jam. Anyway, we're getting down to our 1 minute time that Zoom have put on us. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. And we hope to see you again in the future. Goodbye.